Welcome back, everyone. So, today I'm going to do a quick spoiler and theory style discussion because I've just got back from my second viewing of 28 Years Later, which I enjoyed just as much as the first. Let me start with some of the stuff that I didn't really get into in the review I did, the spoiler free review. So, the beginning of this film is mesmerizing, and they've actually used the music, the Rudyard Kipling poem that they used in the trailer, which was one of the best trailers I've ever seen. They actually did a great job here making it part of the actual movie, and it's actually more effective in my opinion. But during this sequence, we have many different spliced footage from history, which is mirroring what's happening in the small island community of Lindisfarne. And what it's kind of saying to me is that there's still this broader human connection. And what I mean by that is, even though 28 years have passed and the UK is being isolated, we're still humans and we still have that connection to history and humans of the past throughout all eras. So it shows medieval archers as the younger boys of the community are practicing firing arrows. It basically just keeps in mind that even though time has passed, we'll never lose that connection to our ancestors, to a world before the infection. And I think this is reinforced when the character Isla talks about the Angel of the North, which, if you don't know, is a big feature of a man, like a statue of a man stood with his arms out, almost like angel wings. And it stands the test of time. And no matter how much violence has happened around there, it's still standing. And I think that represents humanity as a whole, but also the human race, particularly within the UK. They're still there. The music in this film makes everything, it gives you chills. And on second viewing, I still had those chills, possibly even more so because I was trying to look at it more from a filmmaking perspective than just watching a spectacle. So when I'm thinking about how the sound is working with the footage, it gave me chills 5 or 6 times on this second viewing. The music when Spike and his father first encounter the infected in the forest, or the first fast infected, shall I say, is absolutely amazing scoring for that scene. It's, if I remember right, it's almost like a bass heavy but relatively slow cadence track, and for some reason I absolutely love that. If they bring out a vinyl record of 28 years, I'll be purchasing it day one. The soundtrack as a whole is amazing all the way through. Very different. I think I said as much in the review I did. Very different, but in a good way. It all fit very well. Now, I want to talk about one of the early scenes where Spike, he's getting ready to go on this coming of age trial, and he has this action figure. Now, an action figure is a hero, right? And he thinks about taking it with him as like almost like something that will make him feel more comfortable or at ease. And he thinks twice about it, and then he puts it back because he feels, you know, I'm an adult now essentially, or I'm getting to that age. I need to go out there for myself. I don't need something to keep me connected to, you know, youth and to being at home, essentially. And I think this foreshadows later the decision for Spike to go out on his own in order to help his mother, and he leaves his father behind because his father's this big, strong dude, like the action hero style, but he has to do it for himself, like a kind of a hero's journey style thing. He needs to go and endure whatever there is out there on his own. Now, obviously, he knows his dad would never approve of him going out, but it's the same thing where he's thinking, well, I don't need that protection. I don't need that safety net. And I love Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, the father, in this. He's so flawed. He's obviously like an alpha dude, a survivalist, but the fact that when they first go out, he's always like laughing and he's kind of like it's almost like playing, even though you're surrounded by danger. It comes back to this idea that 28 years has changed everybody. He's been in this since he was a teenager, in this infection, and 28 years have passed, which means everything is normal to him now. And even to the kid, obviously, Spike, who doesn't really act very afraid. He does have moments of fear, but it's part of their life now. Everything has changed. You don't have the mindset we have now prior to the infection that long afterwards. So for him, it's almost like a game that you're going out there and killing infected, and it's just, you don't think twice about it. But he's got this edge to the character where there are negative traits in there. Obviously, there's the moment where his rage is building when when Spike is a bit defiant towards him, and you see this where he's clenching the knife and his fist is shaking, and then obviously as he leaves, he punches the wall. So he's got a bit of this rage in him, pent up anger. But his character is enthralling to me. He also says early on in this film that it's easy for him to kill the infected because they have no mind, no soul. I think he uses both terms. This is in direct opposition to Dr. Kelson's character, Ray Fiennes, who says they're alike, infected and non-infected, and they're just as important as each other, and a death of infected is just as important as the death of a non-infected person. So they are differing ends of this scale. And to survive, and obviously he's done well, the father has kind of gone against this thought process. He's put a barrier there where the infected are not human, they must be killed. You have to kill them, which is what he's trying to reinforce when he takes his son out for the first time and makes him kill the character who's hanging, who's newly infected, who'd been left out by the Jimmy character, which we'll come to later. So two different sides there. And when Spike is out with Isla, his mother, she notes that, well, she asks if the dad is playful with Spike, to which he says no, he's not silly, he's not playful at all. And she says that his granddad was, and that he has his granddad's eyes. So Isla and Spike are more that compassionate side. They're not hardened survivalists. I'm sure Isla's had to go through that type of thing, but they are more, let's say, open and positive than Spike's father. And I think that's why the dynamic works when they discover Dr. Kelson. The three of them are all very much hopeful. They have this positivity, this hopefulness, where they see the best in a situation. This is shown even more so when Isla encounters the infected female who is giving birth. It all comes back to this humanity. The infected itself in this train carriage that's giving birth, its pain is outweighing, so the childbirth, the pain of the childbirth, but childbirth in general is outweighing this primal rage that the infected feels. And Isla sympathizes with the infected and actually slowly approaches, and obviously then acts as like a support for the infected that's giving birth. And just for that moment, that pregnant infected is more human than not. So it's this interesting dynamic where how much of the person is still inside the infected. And there's a scene a bit earlier than that where there's a pack of infected and they're all sat around in a stream, almost like a David Attenborough documentary, and some of them are picking up rocks, maybe like an ape, and throwing them. So there's some kind of cognitive function other than just pure rage at this point. Now, whether that's happened with time or whether that's always been the case, we don't really know. But obviously that's gone a step further with the slow lows and the alphas, who basically have a lot of cognitive processes going on as well as that rage. And I feel like this is how a virus would adapt to various different situations. Now, the other things I wanted to talk about are there's like a rickety bridge. It's involved in 2, maybe 3 of the outings, the same bridge that they cross. And it shows like a break in the bridge, and the camera, I think the camera angle's below and shows this break in the bridge. So while I was watching, I was thinking, well, for the first time, I was thinking maybe that's gonna foreshadow somebody tripping over when they're trying to get away. And I feel like that might be something that happens in the second film just because it showed it so many times. This is just a random thought I had. What do I think is going to happen in the subsequent films? Because I know we're going to get a third. It's already made 14 million domestically just in the UK on opening weekend. I think, it's called the Bone Temple, so we'll be back at Dr. Kelson's residence, essentially. We know that Samson has some kind of knowledge that Dr. Kelson exists there, hence why he came and actually tracked them down at Kelson's residence. And I feel like that's not going to go away. I think he had an attempt where he tried to kill Dr. Kelson. I don't think he'll forget about that with this extra cognitive ability, so I think he'll be back. So Samson will definitely try and get his revenge again. I also think, after the note that Spike gave to his father after giving the baby back, that he will now go and track down Dr. Kelson. He knows where he is. He obviously had knowledge that he didn't want to share with Spike about who was lighting the fires. So I think there will probably be a showdown where he goes to Dr. Kelson. Samson also goes to Dr. Kelson, the Bone Temple. They're both there. And I think even though Spike's father, Jamie, will go to the Bone Temple with a disdain for Dr. Kelson for helping out his son, and then his son basically leaving, I think eventually he'll realise he needs Dr. Kelson's help to track down his son. So I think there'll be a showdown where Kelson's life is once again threatened by Samson, but I think that Jamie, as the hardened guy, will defeat Samson. I think it'll be a tense sequence, but I think he'll overcome because he is a hardened survivor. Isla says as much. She says that the reason Jamie is not being silly with his son is because he wants him to be tough like he is. So he is tough. He's a survivor. I thought in the first film he was going to die in that first outing. Obviously he didn't, which I'm thankful for because I love his character. So I think that's what's going to happen. Now you also bring in this crazy ending sequence, which I'll not lie, the first time I came out, I loved it, by the way, but the first time I came out of the screening, some guys came out just behind me and they were saying the ending ruined it. And today, when I watched it the second time, I noticed people were still having those kinds of conversations. For me, I just thought it was Garland and Boyle having fun, and I actually really liked the scene. I thought it was a funny change of like vibe, really. So what else can we talk about? I think that Spike will essentially stay with Jimmy and those characters for a short period. But in the opening scene, which was a great sequence, by the way, rivaling the 28 Weeks Later one and with a good soundtrack, I think the Jimmy character, it almost shows that his dad was essentially saying you have to keep faith. And obviously he kept this crucifix that he was given. So he has faith in whatever he's doing. So he thinks whatever he's doing is right. He has faith in that, even though what he's doing is probably wrong. We see that from the Hanging Infected, where they've carved Jimmy into the torso. So this character and the rest of his gang were all, although they were mirroring what the Teletubbies do, and with bright colours, they were all dressed like Jimmy Savile. And for those of you who don't know, Jimmy Savile was a Leeds-born like TV presenter, big charity worker, but there were some very dark sides to him which came out after his death. He was very good at fooling people and, on the surface level, being very charismatic and likable, but there was a deep darkness inside him. So I think this is going to be the same with Jack O'Connell's character Jimmy. So because I don't see Spike conforming to his viewpoints, which he has faith in his viewpoints, he thinks he's going to always be right, because I can't see him converting to this outlook, I don't think he'll spend very long with them. And I think he'll then be pursued by Jack O'Connell's character Jimmy, because it almost seems like anyone who goes against him is a heretic, because he's tortured and essentially left for dead somebody who's already gone against him. And there are warnings on the walls and things with Jimmy written, so this character is not good. Unlike the Dr. Kelson character, who, although eccentric and odd at first, is actually a genuinely compassionate dude. So there's a lot there to be thinking about, and I really can't wait for the subsequent sequels. Obviously, the second will be in January. I'm sure the third one will be made. Worst time for my phone to run out of battery. Let me just briefly say at the end then, the fact that an infected gave birth to a human who is not infected, again reinforces this idea that the infected really are human. And I think at some point, Jamie's character, so Spike's father, will also come to this realization. You often find that characters in films and books are stubborn about a certain subject, and with time and situations, they eventually become more open. And I think something will happen. Someone will get infected, possibly, and Jamie's character will suddenly realize he's been wrong to just view them as not even human at that point, just to make it easy for him to kill. This film is just unbelievably good. Considering I'm a huge 28 Days Later fan and a pretty big 28 Weeks Later fan, this is on a scope far beyond what I imagined. And now I can understand why it was made into a trilogy, because it's a big story-driven narrative, and a very intriguing one at that. The main themes for me are this humanity, connection, to our past, and like an unwavering human display of effort and a unified people, essentially. So go and watch this film. I'm sure I'll do another video when I think of some more things that may happen. I'm going to do some more theory videos, I think. It's a new thing for me. I've not done these theory ones before, but essentially, I absolutely adore this film. And whichever direction it goes, I'm sure I'm going to be surprised, and I'm sure I'm going to love it just as much. See you later. This guy thinks he's a human as well.